been a long few years covering this Alec Murdaugh stuff. I put up, people might be like, I'm tired of it, but I have, I think, 60 videos on the Murdaugh cases over the last few years. At least 2 years. I'm not exactly sure when the first one was. I think it was after the death of Maggie and Paul. Though my friend Seton Tucker has been doing a podcast, maybe since then, but anyway, it's been a while. It is Friday, a cloudy, gray, tired dog kind of Friday in North Carolina. And tired cat. I like that I just have all these lazy animals. And just watched the sentencing of Alec Murdaugh, which was pretty poignant to me. And this is going to be a little bit of a different video. So I want us to have a conversation. And then at 11:30, podcaster, oh my God, ants in my freaking kitchen. Podcaster Seton Tucker is going to come on and talk to us a little bit. She was on my subscriber video this morning before we heard the sentencing. And I just think she has some great insight. Well, actually, she said she might be on in a few minutes. What's the water temperature out there? Frickin' cold. I don't know. Do you feel Buster had anything to do with Stephen Smith's death? So maybe we'll have a talk after Seton gets off because she's got something she's got to do. You know, I have that thought has crossed my mind. I think that this morning, really just was feeling sad for Buster, and last night. But this morning, he's sitting there with his hand like this. He's got on a Rolex watch, and he's crying. And I think there are people that say he doesn't deserve any sympathy. I've never been accused of killing anybody. I don't think I've done anything that anybody, but I've had people mad at me, and I've made mistakes. And I've done things that I'm ashamed of. And there are people, well, I know one person that won't speak to me because of something I did that I admitted publicly. This is years ago. And I mean, nothing like, not a crime, but something wrong. And so there are people that have thrown me away too. And I think, yes, if Buster killed Stephen Smith, then I'm going to rely on SLED to handle that. And then I'll chime in. And then would I still feel bad for him? Probably not in the same way. But right now, he hasn't been charged with a crime. And he has no mama and no brother. And he didn't kill them. You know, that was not... He didn't kill them. He just looked so sad. And I lost my own brother. You know, and I wrote this post this morning and said, I'm sad. I'm sad that when he has a baby, there's going to be no grandmother, no grandfather, no uncle to look in the hospital nursery window, because I missed my brother so much then. They're not going to be at his wedding. You know, you miss people when they die immediately. You miss them every second. But as time goes on, and I'm almost 33 years out of losing my brother to cancer, you miss them now. I miss Adam. Like, we're getting ready to go on this amazing ski trip for work. And it's the kind of thing where I would have said, hey, I have a brother, and I know you can't give him a free trip, but could we maybe have them come so I could kind of write about Deer Valley is a great place to go for families. And I don't have that option. That's when you miss them. So I'm particularly sensitive to that. And some people said, you know, Paul was terrible. And he beat his girlfriend, and he killed Mallory Beach on the boat. And you called him a lovely person. I think lovely people can do horrible things. I believe that. I really believe that. Oh, Seton's already here. Okay. No, she's not. Hold on. Seton, come make a comment so I can have you come on. You learn to live without them. Why wasn't Randy there today? But you feeling sorry for Buster is gross. Well, Andrea, kiss my ASS. I mean, I don't know why you think that. Buster has not been charged with a crime. I'm not feeling sorry for Alec, but I'm not going to make somebody guilty. I'm at least enough of an American that I don't think that we're going to say Buster is guilty. I mean, what has he done? Nothing. And when he gets charged and there's evidence and I think he did it, then I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, Buster's a turd. But right now, he's not, to me. So go on with your bad self. He didn't say I couldn't murder my wife and son. He only says I could never have hurt them. I think Buster has a lot of the stolen money. There's no way he spent it all on pills. I think Alec gave it all to Buster before he was arrested. You know, I don't know about this money thing. I don't think there is a lot of hidden money. And you know why I think that? Why would he have had a negative $375,000 balance in his checking account? He was stealing to pay back money. So if he had money squirreled away somewhere, he would have used it. I mean, it's one thing to hide money, but it's another thing to have a $375,000 negative balance. What is Buster doing for a job? I have no idea. I have no idea. I really don't know. I just don't know. Seaton, where are you? Buster's lack of emotion. I think Buster was pretty emotion-filled yesterday and today. He just looked broken to me. I didn't feel like Alec had a lot of emotion. I didn't see any crying. And I was thinking, like, what do you do when you're accused of killing somebody and you don't? Like, it'd be interesting to go back to people that are like let off from the DNA project, right? And they're innocent. Do you go back and watch them in court? Did they cry? Did they tell you I was stoic? Like, to me, my gut is that I would be crying my eyes out. I would be like, this cannot be real. Please do not sentence me to jail. I didn't freaking do this. Like, it makes me want to cry thinking about it. Why did the bank allow him to have such a high balance? I have no idea. I don't know, because he was a Murdaugh. I have no freaking idea. The FBI is actively investigating money hidden. Well, that just doesn't make sense to me. If I had money hidden, that is sure as hell when I would bring it out when, like, he's about to go down for money missing from his firm. Don't you think you'd pull the money out of the offshore account before you wanted to get disbarred? So I think that I'm right on that one, personally. Seaton Tucker, are you over here? I don't see you. Seaton, you have to make a comment. Buster's life is going to change dramatically. What trial are you going to do this summer? I don't know. I don't know about all these trials. This might become a subscriber thing. It's too exhausting. Well, one, I have 4 children. I cannot watch a trial all summer. Do you know what I do in the summer? I drive people to jobs. So I spend more on gas so people can go and make $7 an hour slapping lettuce on Subway subs, because I'm trying to teach people about work ethics. So my son Thomas worked as a dishwasher his first summer, and he had been working about, 2 weeks, and he said to me, you know, I don't know why anybody would choose this job. And I called my husband that night because we were at the beach and my husband was at home. And yes, like Maggie's family, we'd go stay at the beach in Edisto, whatever. And I said, that's why he has this job, right? Because he doesn't get it. And so we talked to him about, or I think I did, nobody chooses this job. This is the job that you get when you don't have an education or opportunities. Like, you're in a family that is allowing you to go to an amazing school, and you can do all these things. Anyway, so that's just, I don't know why I told you that, but I did. So I don't know about the money. I don't know what Buster's going to do. I thought it was interesting that Alec had said that he was the breadwinner for the whole family still. Now, Paul was in college. So I would say when I was in college, that's how it was in my family. I realize a lot of people aren't like that, but it was for me. Brian Koberger's trial is this summer. I guess that will be interesting. I guess that will be interesting to watch, but I feel like he's guilty. I love how I say I disagree with Adrian, and she says I can kiss her ass. I didn't get on and say Adrian can kiss my ass for agreeing with me. I actually would respect you if you did. Privileged people feel bad for this family because they see themselves in the privilege. Getting off for things normal Americans will be punished for. Well, I am privileged, and I hope I'm not entitled. But yeah, I think you're right. I think I do recognize that. I think it is, I think it's the same reason that when, let's say there's somebody that's a real Republican, they love a Republican, and you start talking about George Santos, what does that person do? They defend him. Or let's say you're a serious Democrat. I mean, you are liberal as a $3 bill. And somebody points out to you, boy, it seems weird that Joe Biden, maybe has some dementia. No, he does not. What about Trump? And so when O.J. Simpson is on trial for murder, he gets off. And they say it's because he is famous and black and the jury wasn't going to convict him. And now you have a white boy tried by a jury of his peers, mainly white, I would argue. And I would also argue that this time, he didn't get off innocent. So you might think that I'm that way, but he didn't get off. They looked at the evidence and said he's off. I think there are people that drink that are insane. I think there are some people that drink, and I know some of them very well, and they are horrible people when they're drunk. But I would say they are lovely people when they are not. And I would say that people that are addicts do terrible things, and if they recover, they're lovely people. So I think good people can do bad things. But that's just me. That's just me. The son is not a lovely person. Well, I will just disagree, Andrea. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But we'll disagree on that. I wouldn't have felt bad for him if he went to prison for life for killing Mallory Beach. I really wouldn't have. Alcohol psychosis. Yeah. And I think those parents really are experts in bad parenting. I mean, but I will tell you, and maybe this is a privileged thing, not in the Wood family, there are a lot of adults that supply alcohol to teenagers. I had no idea. And yes, it seems like it goes with people that are privileged. I have witnessed it and felt like I got run over by a bulldozer. It was shocking to me. Shocking. And I wasn't exactly raised like, a Baptist. I mean, when I was a senior in high school, if you wanted a beer, you could have one. And so I wasn't, but holy cow. My parents also didn't buy me alcohol at 15 either. And I've seen that. It blows my mind, and I've seen it. Okay, where is Seton Tucker? Seton Tucker, let me go text. Anyway. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not a lovely person. His friends said, boy, when I listened to the trial, what I heard about Paul is he would have given you the shirt off his back. He would have done anything in the world for you. And his best friend, whose girlfriend was killed on that boat, forgave him. And I respect him, Connor Cook. I mean, he just talked about him, that he was this nice guy who had a real alcohol problem. I thought you said noon. Well, I did. And then I came out early. Rednecks supply the booze as well. I love a good redneck. It was the parents buying the booze. Well, ain't nobody coming over here to buy booze. Yes, I'm early, all my subscribers. So if you're a subscriber, you know when I'm coming on. But sometimes I lie. Yeah, Judge Newman said when Alec said, I wouldn't have hurt my wife and son, Paul. He said, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the monster you become when you take pills. And think about people that take pills are dangerous. I mean, people that take pills, they become thieves. They do all sorts of things. Anyway, moonshine. Oh my God. So anyway, I don't know what trial we'll watch this summer. There's a big trial in the fall for me, and I will not call this person a lovely person at all. A young girl, 13-year-old, the same age as my daughter. Her name is Hanya Aguilar, and she was murdered way before Maggie and Paul. And the trial still has not happened in Lumberton. And she was waiting for her ride to school and was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. And if you want to talk about the police doing a bad job, if you think SLED did a bad job, you ain't seen a bad job. In fact, my husband filed a lawsuit on behalf of her family, and it ended up, we had to drop it because you can't sue law enforcement unless you can argue that they did something intentionally wrong. So just because they didn't do an Amber Alert, just because they said to her family, maybe she ran away, just because they didn't provide an interpreter, just because they screwed up the whole freaking thing, doesn't mean that we could sue them. But it made her mama feel better. So anyway, that trial is going to be in the fall in Lumberton, and I plan to be there for that. September 23. Yep. So anyway, I will be covering that trial. Do you think the brothers were different in their ability to care for others? I think the parents did everything they could to make these children never be responsible for anything in their life. Hey, Seaton.
Hello.
They're all like, you said it was at noon. I told the subscribers. I was like, well, we went on early because then Seaton had something to do. And I was like, you know what? We can do it now.
Well, and it was shorter because there weren't anybody. We didn't hear anybody from the prosecution or the defense take the stand to speak to why Alex should receive a light or heavy sentence. So it was faster, I think, than we anticipated.
Why do you think there were no victim statements?
You know, that the victim statement from Maggie's family probably would have happened from Marion.
Seaton is a podcast. Tell them your podcast, Seaton.
Oh, Murdaugh Family Murders, Impact of Influence.
Murdaugh Murders, Impact of Influence, number 13 on Crime Podcast right now on Apple. So go find it.
But I think that
That's
respect, I mean, it's complicated. I think that I saw Marion hug Buster on the way outside of the courtroom, and Buster still. No. This was after she testified. So
And what did he do when he hugged him?
They hugged each other, just normal is what I saw. I mean, I saw other people say different things, but I really think that they had a genuine family exchange.
Right. Well, that's really good to hear Because sometimes I feel like when you have, to me, her testimony was nice about Alec. It just felt like it was very honest to me. So maybe he could
Oh
have,
no,
but he could have and thought, well, she's trying to hurt my dad. You know, people get things in their brain. So it's nice to hear that.
no, she was a good witness, but I think, it's a complicated situation. I think out of respect for Buster, who appears to still be supporting his dad, I think she didn't come on. And really, there wasn't really much reason to, because he was gonna, the prosecution was not seeking the defense, the death penalty. So they weren't seeking the death penalty. And as we saw, Judge Newman said the rest of your natural life in prison. So I don't think that was really going to, I guess as a victim, you have the right to come out and be heard if you want to be heard. And I can see where people would want to be heard.
And I think one thing I thought about was her family has been, I mean, I sort of admire it, honestly. They have not said a word to anybody about anything this whole time. You never heard from his sister. They never did an interview. They never did a thing. And so it sort of goes along with that a little bit.
They may just be private people.
Or private.
And they're grieving, and everybody grieves differently. And I don't think you can condemn. We've received so many questions in the course of this podcast about why her family is not coming out in support or denial. And again, I stick by, I think it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I said, I just feel, I have sympathy for Buster. I just felt sad for him. And somebody was like, it's because you're white privileged and, you could see that innocence. And I was like, I don't think so. I think it's having lost just one member of my family and not having my brother, and just more feeling sad that none of this had to happen,
I mean, the family has really been villainized, but I felt a terrible amount of sympathy for Buster. And I guess, again, I don't really care at this point, say terrible things about me, but yeah. I can't help but really feel sad. This poor young man has lost his mother and his brother, and his dad apparently did it. It's terrible.
Yeah. And his dad is, I do not feel bad for Alec. I think his dad, that's kind of a burden on Buster too. So he's not lost him, like he's not dead, he's alive. And then think how much he called him from that prison.
Yeah.
So then what do you say no to your dad? Do you feel guilt? I mean, that would be really hard. Like, what is he supposed to do now?
Well, and my take on Buster, having sat through 6 weeks of trial with him, he seems also to be a private person, and also a person who does not like the spotlight. And he knows that every day, all day, there's a camera on him, and everybody in the courthouse is looking at him.
Yeah.
And if you're not somebody who is comfortable with that, that's a weird thing.
I don't think anybody would like that. I was thinking about that. Like, if I were him today and I were because I was thinking, I think I would be crying, or John Marvin could be hugging him.
No,
but then I thought,
yeah, he wasn't crying.
But if I knew everybody was watching me, I think I would be like, I'm going to be a hard ass, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hold it together. I'm not going to give them what they want.
Yeah. And you know what, for whatever it actually was, I thought really a nice thing to say by Creighton Waters when he did his press conference. If you don't know, Creighton Waters is the Attorney General in Alan Wilson said it. Creighton Waters was the Assistant AG. Creighton Waters is the Attorney General. And during the press conference, Alan Wilson said, we're here for the entire family. And the reason why Buster was able to attend was because he's actually considered a victim because he lost his mother and his brother.
Okay. And same thing with his aunt or the uncle or whatever. They're all victims.
Yeah.
So this is a totally random question, but yesterday we heard about this juror that got kicked off the jury in the morning.
Oh, God. Yeah.
To get their dozen eggs out of the jury room. And then they said, does anybody have a problem with a blind choosing of an alternate juror? And I was sure somebody was going to raise their hand and say, we can't have the juror that's had the blanket over their head.
Well, she wasn't the one who was selected.
Well, and I wanted to ask you that just to make sure.
I'm going to have to charge my phone up here. No, so she was not the juror who was selected. And plugging my phone in. It's about to die. 10%. No, so she was not the juror who was selected.
Thank goodness.
And yeah, no, I mean, I think that would have been problems. But I think that there was also something to say because the defense objected to this juror being dismissed. So I think that there was a possibility that they considered the juror who was dismissed to be someone who may have been sympathetic to their, yeah.
I heard that. And that was about the last time we heard old Poot talk.
No, Poot did not talk, and Jim Griffin did the closing. And I don't know why. You would think, I mean, this might be Dick Harpootlian's swan song. I mean, he's getting up there in age. I don't know that he's going to have it in.
Alec picked, which would make sense. I mean,
I've heard that too. I have not been able to confirm that, but I think that.
I think Poot hurt himself when he went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over that whole with the law partners telling the stories. You're not Zen. You're, blah, 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 you know, you're angry. Anyway.
No.
I don't think that was the finest moment. I think
talk about Judge Newman today. Because, you know, Judge Newman has really taken a hands-off approach about, you know, speaking out. He's let, you know, not in a sports analogy, he's really let the just game play out. He has not really, he's issue after issue. It's like, we're going to take it as it comes. We're going to just, we're just going to do this. But then it was really interesting to hear his perspective today. And one thing that he brought up was when Alec said, with this tangled web of lies we lead.
And he said, Judge Newman, I guess I haven't ever followed a trial this closely.
I have.
But I didn't know that judges gave their opinions after a jury spoke. I wonder if that's typical.
I don't know either. Like, literally, I was on.
We need to go watch.
I know. But it was so interesting because I've wondered throughout this whole process what he was thinking. And what was super interesting, he's like, I've met you. I know you. You had a lovely family. I mean, did you catch that?
Yeah. He said, and you were fun and gregarious. And like, I had to take your family's portrait down in the courtroom so there wouldn't be any bias.
Exactly.
But I think, honestly, any bias that might have come would have been the opposite kind of bias, which I think is why we saw Alec kind of adopt this way he was talking and his show that he put on. He was trying to put himself down at a jury's level, more of a kind of regular person in South Carolina level. And those people ain't falling for it.
Well,
because they see him as a privileged attorney. And when he starts talking like that, they're like, no, we know what you're up to.
I think that was his MO for a long time. He knew how to relate to people and get what he wanted by relating to people. You know, I've heard time and time again that he was the person that you would run into at the grocery store. He'd know your name. he would say, "Hey, how are you doing? How's your ailing grandma?" You know, like that was the person he
Right.
was.
Because they had a photographic memory, like he could remember everything.
Right.
Which is how my husband is. He can tell you, I can't even tell you the names of my own cousins. And he's like, so and so. Now, he can't remember what to get at the grocery store, but he remembers names and times and places. It's bizarre.
No, I think that was him. And I think he knew how to read a room, but I think that ship had sailed in this case. The evidence was enough. And the big thing that could not overcome was this 844 video. And the fact that he lied about this 844 video for so long. And, you know, it took a really long time for this 844 video of him down at the kettles, which was just, you know, moments before they died. And I don't know that he was ever going to tell the truth about this video until SLED was able to unlock Paul's phone and get this video. And it took a really long time. That video was not able.
April of 22.
Right. So they died in June of 2021, and SLED was not able to unlock the video until April of 2022.
And is that normal? Why did it take so long to unlock the phone?
I thought that was really weird. I know that SLED did have the help of the FBI to help them in their investigation. I mean, there are questions about some of the things SLED did and did not do throughout this.
Annoyed at SLED. Like SLED got up there and talked, and I wanted to tell that person to sit down.
Which one?
The like head of SLED was like, "Thank you, we're so glad," and I wanted to be like, "Shut up! Why didn't you collect that blue shirt?"
Right. Well, and I mean, another thing that they did bring up was the whole switching, which I said this throughout the course of it. But again, this 844 video, that's what got him. You know, SLED, you know, the switching of things. They had this T-shirt that he was wearing that did or did not have blood spatter. Well, no, it didn't have blood spatter. They said it had blood spatter. They sent it to the person because they were saying, and then midstream, they switched and said, no, he wasn't wearing that. He's Mr. Clean. They went from Mr. Blood to Mr. Clean. Right. And the big thing with that was they didn't request the clothing until November of this year. So that was an issue. But I mean, again, they were able to overcome that because I think just the evidence with this 844 video was too much. And I think that's why Alec had to take the stand, because I mean, obviously it wasn't successful, but he had to take the stand to overcome this.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned is that never ever take the stand.
Yeah, it wasn't probably. And you know what? I don't know.
It doesn't work, and it makes people hate you more.
I know.
If you're out there and
I don't think it worked. And
no,
you know what's weird?
If you're innocent, go for it.
I don't even know if you're innocent, if you should. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an attorney.
Oh, no, I'd have to talk if I were innocent. But I wouldn't be up there. I like her. So maybe.
And Ellen got up today and said, I'm innocent.
Yeah. But, you know, somebody pointed out, he didn't say, he said, I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, or my son, Paul. And then the judge turned around and said, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the monster you became when you were on all those pills. But he didn't say kill. He said hurt. You know? So it's so interesting. And when he was in that car saying, I did you so bad. Or some people said he said they did you bad. I think I don't know. It's
so bizarre. I'm still wrapping my head around it, and I find it incredibly sad. And I know some people don't find it sad because people had opinions about the whole family in one way or the other. But I still am wrapping my brain around the fact that everyone in the family described this relationship with Paul as Paul was, you know, Alec's best friend, and you know, Maggie. There were were no really reported problems in the relationship. We heard all these rumors about problems. We didn't really, I mean, when Marion took the stand, Maggie's sister, there was like a little sidebar, and I guess some kind of conversation about some sort of Facebook exchange that took place 15 years ago, and the judge did not allow that. So
Right.
the jury didn't hear that. But, we didn't really hear anything other than they had a strong marriage. So it's hard to wrap your head around. And I think Meadors, who did the second cross, I mean, again, this is the first trial I ever attended, but the second, so Creighton Waters did the first closing, and then you heard from the defense, you heard from Jim Griffin, and he did the second. And then Meadors, who was with the prosecution, got to come back and do like another round. And I guess his dad is a preacher. So he came out and he kind of hammered away. I think Jim Griffin had a really strong close, and then Meadors came back and really whittled away at a lot of the things that he said.
Mm. So tell me something. So this video down at the kennels, when did that first come to light? When did we find out about that video existing?
The kennels, that was not till April. That was not till this past April.
When did he find about it? I know that they unlocked in April.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, my days run together at this point. But I'm not really.
Was it a month ago? Was it the summer?
I think that, I don't know. Fitz News was the first to report it, and okay. I think that wasn't until this fall. But I could be wrong. So please don't send me. Oh, someone just said April of 2020. No, that was when.
That's when they opened the phone.
I don't know about it. There were some rumors about it, and I think they were reported on Fitz News. I don't know the date. Please don't send me messages because I got it wrong, because I'm just going on saying I don't know.
They love to criticize.
Oh my gosh. If you ever want a thick skin, start a podcast or start a blog, because then you will not care, because people can be cray-cray.
I don't know why you're not reading my comments.
Sanity. I mean, again, I never even wrote a negative review ever before I started a podcast. Now I might start writing negative reviews just to do it. But
so the reason I asked that question, though, is because I was thinking about the jury.
I just said November 15th.
Okay. So I knew about that video before this trial. But the people that were in the jury, they might not have been into this case like you and I are. So let's just say for a minute, they are on the jury, they're sitting up there, and that video is shown to them, and they've never seen it before. And they have been listening to this trial. To me, that would have been a really big bombshell, which they said it was. And so it made sense to me that, like, I've already kind of become accustomed to the video exists and he's been lying. But for them, it was a big deal, I think. And I think it was brand new to them.
I think we should actually think about this, because so the jury, when I sat through part of the selection of jury members, and one of the things was, you could have heard about this case, because they're like, okay, nobody around here has not heard of this case. And then they said, if you have heard of this case, have you formed an opinion as to guilt or innocence? And then you had to say yes or no. A lot of people said no, and they may have just wanted to get off of the jury. Who knows? But I will say that I don't know what the media coverage. I think that might be something to consider. What the media, you were supposed to, the jury was charged, and I'm not saying they did or didn't do this. I think they probably did. You were charged with setting aside everything you've heard, everything you've known about this case, and starting over and listening to the evidence that's been being presented to you at this time, and making a decision based on the evidence that is presented to you. So, and again, it wasn't a long deliberation. I think that they pretty much decided, and I think that the thing that really got Alec was this 8:44 video. Maybe if he had fessed up to this at an earlier time, he'd been honest with law enforcement in earlier interviews, that they they might have said, well, I think it was the lying. And then I think the jury was saying, why are we supposed to believe you now when you've said you've lied multiple times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is another question. When that video that Paul took on his phone, did he ever actually send it to Roro?
No.
Or did it stay on his phone?
It never went through. That's why it took so long to become unlocked, because he was only at 2% battery life. And so I don't think he had the ability, because they initially tried to FaceTime, and that did not work because down at the kennels,
worked for 10 seconds.
Right, was not the best. So
but Rogan heard his voice on the FaceTime.
No, it was a phone call. It was, the FaceTime never went through. It was a phone call. So
he heard Alec's voice.
Asked the dog, and he said, Rogan said, I heard Alec's voice on this phone call. And I think at that point, Alec denied. No, that wasn't me.
What Alec
can mistake it.
Said is, they said, what would you say if somebody said your voice had been heard? And this is in the August interview. And Alec said, I talked to Rogan, who said he thought he heard my voice. I don't think it was me. They said, well, what if we told you we had evidence that it was you? He said, I would be surprised if I had my times.
That probably was because it was a double lie. It was so first he says, Rogan says, you're on, I can hear Alec's voice in the background. And another question that, I don't know if it was Metters or Waters that brought this up when they were doing their closing, or would he have ever come forward with to be truthful had he not been caught in this lie, which I think all of us can probably make an assumption about that.
It kind of would have been fun if they never told him about this evidence. And just waited.
Yeah.
Were you there that night? No, I was not. Hello.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been pretty darn powerful. I don't know what evidence you have to submit ahead of time, or, there are rules about that.
Well, we should talk about that too. There was some late to the game evidence, because it was kind of funny about OnStar stuff. I mean, I think the people from OnStar were watching and they're like, oh, wait a second, we have. And then Sled said they sent a fax over there to get the information. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know people still sent faxes.
Oh, yeah, they send, this is a total aside, but that is how Amber Alerts happen, through a fax.
Really?
And a trial that Seton is going to be taking recommendations for me on her next trial.
Yeah.
And the one you've heard me talk about, Hanya Aguilar, the 13-year-old little girl who was kidnapped, raped, and murdered as she was waiting for the school bus in Lumberton, North Carolina. And the police, when they called 911, and her aunt and sisters who were watching from the window it happened, told the police said, maybe she just ran away. It was planned. So they took 2 hours to do an Amber Alert, and they faxed the Amber Alert. And then 2 hours later, they called and said, well, is the Amber Alert going to come out? They had never gotten the fax. So that trial starts in September in Lumberton. And the mother has become a good friend of mine. Her name is Sally. And she, if you want to see poor police work, that is a trial to watch. I
will be watching. I enjoy going to trials.
Well,
so I didn't know.
I'm good here. So you and I could go and stay together. And the man what was really interesting about him, Michael McClellan, and his DNA was found at the scene. There's no question that he did it. He was already in prison, and there was a CODIS hit on a rape of a woman randomly. And the CODIS hit goes to the the desk of the sheriff's office that, hey, you've got a prisoner and he is responsible for this unsolved rape. They did nothing with the DNA. So he got out of prison. Like, he should have not gotten out of prison, and he couldn't have killed Hanya. So, anyway.
I want to come. I really. I mean, I don't enjoy seeing terrible things or hearing about terrible things as we have in this trial or this type of things. But I really do enjoy watching the legal process. I didn't know that I would. This was actually the first. I mean, I attended some of the pretrial stuff, but this is the first real trial that I've attended, the whole thing. And I'm with you. I'm going to come up and go with you a few days if.
Well, and you're good at it, Seton. And I think that this case in particular has really has shown me when you're a minority of police coverage. And Elizabeth Smart, obviously, who we all know, was kidnapped in the night, raped, was not murdered. But within 5 days, she was on the cover of People magazine. And she has become an advocate for Indigenous women because she said, you know, because I'm white and blonde, I'm on the cover of People magazine. Where Hanya was on my blog, some dumb North Carolina blog. She wasn't on Dateline. She wasn't on the nightly news. She was over on Educated Debutante.
You know, I think that's a real thing. I do feel like, yeah, that really bothers me. And I think that coverage should be anybody missing any, especially you're talking about a 13-year-old girl, is just egregious. And I think we should all be focused on things.
Yeah. Shanquella Robinson. I mean, we're sitting wondering why no one has been arrested. If that were Adrian Wood.
You have to come up with me. You have to come to Charlotte and watch that one with me.
Well, I really do feel for her family. And I think, and I don't think it's necessarily color or minority, because I thought to myself, okay, let's say it was Barack Obama's daughter that went on this trip with these friends. Do you think that the killer would still be wandering around? No. I think when you're a minority, it's less of a priority, and the media just isn't covering it because there's some fear of like, well, maybe we're going to highlight black on black crime, which is like this bizarre theme that people think exists, instead of saying, no, we have to cover this. So I think there's a lot of valuable things out there to cover.
I'm no expert, and I don't know why that is, but I think that, I mean, all we can do is try to highlight things like this that we see.
Yeah. And I think will be interesting to kind of, you know, take some time from this and come back. It goes along a lot in my mind of parenting, and people get real sensitive when you talk about parenting. But you can look at some parenting of Maggie and Alec Murdaugh and say there was a lot of bad parenting going on.
I don't comment on parenting because, I mean, I don't know. Like,
it doesn't mean that good parenting doesn't end up with kids. But I could say, when your child wrecks a car drunk, do you go and get all the beer cans out and take them away from the scene?
No, I did watch. I haven't made it through the entire Netflix special, but I did see that, and I thought, no, that's a problem. But I just think that it was a law family, and they thought in terms of repercussions, right or wrong. I don't think it's right. I'm not suggesting in any way it's right, but I think that people maybe do those things.
Well, or that night of that boat accident. I mean, trying to make sure he didn't get it pinned on him.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, yes. I think, and obviously he was and probably still is. I don't even know if they're going to pursue those anymore, these obstruction of justice causes, you know, that he was trying to manipulate things in the aftermath of the boating accident at the hospital. I think that, yeah, he probably was. But I've also spoken to attorneys who've said, well, it's never a good idea for anybody to talk. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Ask your husband.
I know. Well, we'll get him on. I got to catch him up. An $8,000 gun, a Rolex watch. I mean, these are.
Can we talk about? Oh, we never heard about the Gucci. We never heard about the Gucci, whatever that purchase was. But can we also talk about I've never heard of any gun owners being as irresponsible as this family. Paul left guns everywhere to travel around. The granddad never once cleaned his gun. They literally seem like they left them loaded everywhere. This to me was insanity. I mean, have they not watched the the ads where little children find a gun and shoot themselves on accident. I mean, that was kind of crazy. Were they like this always? That there were just these guns everywhere?
Or letting your teenager drive around with guns in their car.
It was bizarre. I mean, I
have teenagers that hunt. They ain't nobody taking guns around in their car like on the way to school.
No. And he's losing them. He's leaving them. I mean, it was very, that part of it was really strange. And it didn't just come from the Murdaugh camp. It was told by everybody. They just rode around with these guns, and they left them loaded here and there, willy-nilly. It was bizarre.
You know, I think the other big thing that we've only heard, I guess, from one juror so far that was on ABC.
I know.
But to me,
that this morning.
Yeah, I think the other big thing is that they were family weapons. That
they tried
knew
that in the closing, but that was not successful at all. I think these were family weapons.
Because
and
shells matched the gun that Paul's friend said we were shooting in April.
Well,
they went and found the shell.
And this whole random vigilante thing with I don't say that word right, but the whole, you know, that there was. Say it again. Vigilante.
Well, no, I think I always hear like vigilante justice. That's like
I don't know, but whoever this random person who had a grudge to hold because of the boating accident, and they weren't even trying to accuse the actual people who were boaters. They were trying to say that
Alex said, I don't think it was anybody on the boat.
Like on social media, the outlash, but it didn't seem like this was ever investigated and like this random person who happened to know that Paul was going to be there. With all accounts, he was couch surfing. He was staying in Charleston a day, going here and going there. He was going around different. So this person who was a social media person would have just happened to know that Paul was going to happen to get Moselle that day. And also that there were going to happen to be guns there that they could use to kill him. I mean, it just seemed very far.
And not even be guns there to kill him. Guns that were missing to kill him. It would have been better if those guns had just been in the house. Like the missing guns is even worse. I don't think Alec thought in his mind they'll never be able to prove if they can't find them that those were my guns.
Yeah. But also, I do think the disposal, again, people don't send me messages. I still think that there was somebody else there because I think the disposal of the guns, that's a huge issue. And I also still think the disposal of Maggie's phone was a problem. And it makes me lead to not necessarily that Alec wasn't involved. I think he was absolutely involved, but that there was somebody else there to aid in this.
See, I don't. I think that he took the guns and put them at the back of his parents' property that night. And I think I did the whole test with the phone. And it really is funny. When you pick up your phone softly, the light comes on.
I did the test too. I did it.
And when you pick up the phone to throw it, I threw it on the couch. It never came on.
I know. I think everybody in South Carolina did that test.
As
did the expert.
So I kind of see, and I think that showing up at his mother's house at 6:30 a.m. the day after his dad's funeral, because that was in rapid succession to the murder of his family, and he shows up with this, blue business. I think the guns.
I actually don't think that. I don't buy it. I think that raincoat. I don't also understand why when SLED also found a tarp, why they didn't take both of those. And I think what they said is the guns would have had blood on them, and the rain jacket had GSR in there. So I was also bothered by why there was not blood in, I'm no expert, y'all. Everybody has their opinion. Well, but that's just what I know.
Yeah. Well, the steps were big. So I have a PhD in research. So I pulled out my little, some quantitative statistics last night. and I was looking at those steps, the 282 steps that we heard in the closing argument of Jim Griffin. That was a normal.
On 1 second a step, 1 second a step.
Yes. So then what I did was I looked at the number of steps from 10 o'clock until 10:16, which was a pretty busy time for him. If you took away 2 minutes, I took away 4 minutes. I took away 2 minutes that he went in the house and another 2 minutes when he drove the car, right? So I got it to 12 minutes. And when you looked at the rate steps per second, he was still faster at 9 o'clock than he was when he found his wife and son's bodies.
Don't you feel like both
running
explaining this to us?
Huh?
Don't you feel like sides could have done a better job explaining this to us? Like, why?
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, I did this.
Having to do these home analysis yourself. Like, why didn't the defense or prosecution wrap this up? Which I should not be saying this because I would really like to talk to them both. But they're probably not going to talk to me now. But
yeah, I think the prosecution just didn't. I wanted to know more about those steps. I wanted to know. I thought that the prosecution, the defense did a better job of explaining it, but the prosecution should have anticipated it. We were all thinking about those steps and really analyzed it to his other steps of the day. Why those steps not only were fast, but they were 4 times faster than any other steps he took all day long, including when he found his wife and son.
Yeah. And I really thought that the jurors may have asked for more. I don't know if they asked for more information, but I don't think so, because what I've heard is it takes a while for when they get back, they give them some instructions. Like, I don't really know how long the deliberations actually, it's 3 hours, but I don't know actually how much of that time was actually spent deliberating or whether they requested any of this information.
Tell me, so somebody just asked a question. What was the deal with the hair in Maggie's hand?
We don't know. That was brought up in early on cross of one of the SLED witnesses. Did you analyze this hair in the hand? And it was also brought up by Jim Griffin from the defense team on the close and said, hey, on SLED's lack of investigation, did you ever look at this hair that was found in Maggie's hand? And that was never analyzed. And they just basically said, Alec was in the bubble, in the circle is what they said, and you didn't look at anybody else. And I think that not looking at the hair that was in Maggie's hand does a little bit lean towards that. Why wasn't that? And we didn't hear anything from the prosecution about this hair, but we did hear from the defense, and maybe they did bring it up in the close, but maybe they should have talked about it more. I don't know.
People are saying maybe it was dog hair. Now, this was something I'd heard about, but I don't know anything about it. Kim is saying, what about the tour with Maggie's bike, the flower pot with Buster's name on it, and the blue shirt hanging in the window?
Yeah. So that was, they had the jurors got to go to Moselle and make an assessment themselves. And after that, there were, I think, Valerie Barline from the Wall Street Journal got to go, and there were 2 other, a photographer and one other person got to go to take pictures and assess this thing. And I've seen the pictures. I don't know what to make of it, whether it was staged. Apparently there was a flower pot that had Buster's name on it. I've seen the pictures. I don't know what to make of it, whether somebody went and thought that it may be in some way favorable to have a flower pot with Buster's name. Maybe that was, I don't know what to make of this. Mm-hmm. But I saw the bike parked out front. Again, no one's living there right now. So I believe John Marvin is maintaining the property, and it's under contract. I think they're splitting it in 2, last I heard. Don't know 100%, but I think the property is going to be split in 2. And I don't know why these things were there. It did strike me as odd, especially the bicycle outfit and the Buster and the flower pot and I've seen the pictures, but I really haven't had time to delve that much into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just thought that was curious. And one thing that got me was this whole Paul's phone and Alec saying, I picked him up by his belt loop to turn him over. And do you turn somebody over picking them up by their belt loop, and the phone popping out, and then calling Rogan 6 times before he called Buster? That makes me speculate that he was trying to get that phone and he was going to delete that video, and he wasn't sure if Rogan had gotten it, but then he couldn't open the phone.
I think that he probably saw Rogan, and again, it was another reason that he lied or possibly wasn't decided. Like, my take on it, just sitting through this trial, and again, I'm just saying this as someone sitting it, and just as someone who may or could have been someone who was just watching this as a spectator with no sort of expertise. But I thought that it was possible that maybe he saw Rogan calling and maybe got the phone. But then I think the bigger problem was, okay, if that was true, maybe you saw someone calling and you wanted to answer it, then why not just be truthful about that? And that indicates more deception.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Like, why lie about the
Why call Rogan 6 times before you call your own son?
Well, he probably had Rogan on his mind because he thought that Rogan was trying to call him for one reason or another. But again, the bigger question in my mind is, why was he not being truthful? Like, oh no, I saw Paul's phone ringing, I just went to answer because I'm like, who could be calling him? Maybe it's somebody who has something to do with something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Well, that whole, the phone popped out and I put the phone back in. I was worried about the scene. Well, and you were saying about Judge Newman. I really did think Judge Newman I was just really enraptured with his analysis and the way he was talking to Alec in such a kind, truthful way, and this encouragement of like, I want you to, I don't know, I just really liked it.
I did too. And what we have to think about too is Judge Newman lost his own son
in January, right? Cardiac arrest.
Just several weeks before this trial began. So he is probably coming at it from like, where are the important things in life angle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how could this person take away this child when I would give anything to have mine back?
Yeah.
That would have been, I think, pretty heavy on your mind. But anyway, I appreciated that he said to the jurors, I think you found the right, you did the right thing. The verdict was right.
Yeah, because they have to live with that. They have to live with that. If you're on a jury, it's
yes, even if you think that, I don't think I would want that on my shoulders.
No. I think that's a hard thing. And actually, it was funny because, one of the things that you are asked if you are going to be sitting on a death penalty case is, could you administer the death penalty? I don't know that I could. Honestly, I'm not sure. And I think I might be one of those people who would have to tap out. And I actually, sitting through this, I admired the jury so much. And I hope that I have a chance to sit on a jury at some point.
I could. I didn't, not that I'm like really for or against the death penalty. I guess I'm sort of neutral. I think this Hanya Aguilar case makes me see that a death penalty makes me understand how it could be used. I think the problem with the death penalty, and this would be a really good thing for my husband to discuss, is that the death penalty cases keep the case going on forever. And Hanya's mother and I have been talking about this. Yeah. And they really let the family decide. And for her, the death penalty, it's interesting there. The DA is like, this is a death penalty case. But I said to him, well, you know what? That's not up to you to decide. She gets to have a say in this. And she doesn't, she wants to make sure. And when you have people that aren't English speakers, it's really important again. But she was confused. She thought after they explained it to her, he gets the death penalty and goes to jail forever, or he doesn't go to jail forever. Like, she didn't realize you can go to jail forever with no death penalty. And that's a language barrier. And we don't want to trick someone. Maybe it wasn't tricking, but.
Well, let's think about what Judge Heyman said. In some ways, you might think, like, I'm sure you dream about your son and your wife every day. You wake up thinking about them, you dream about them. Like, what's worse? You can put somebody out of their misery, or you can make them dream about the loved person that they may have had a hand in killing every day.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is we had a family from where I'm from, and there was a lot of financial problems, not even stealing, but problems. And the person took his own life, kind of the patriarch of the family, I think because of that, and just couldn't handle it and got out. And it's like that would have, in some ways, made more sense to me if Alec was like, I can't see a way out of this and I'm going to die. I don't know. Anyway. You're pretty narcissistic if you're like, well, I got to get rid of those two to save myself. Like, he don't want the death penalty.
Yeah.
I don't think. Anyway. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to miss our chat.
Well,
like, I have to find another one.
We're just going to come on and maybe we need to start doing live videos and talking about our cases that we're going to do.
Yeah, I figured it out. Like, I'm taking time to process again, because I just started this honestly as a passion project. Just was really interested in telling the story for no other reason than that. And just, I think we've found our grave, and I've met some really amazing, cool people, including you, along the way. And I hope that in some way or somehow this continues. But I have to process and see what's next for me. I hope something.
What does
if
Matt
not be a guest on, I'll not a guest. I'll just be a regular subscriber on your
No, we're going to talk. What does Matt think?
What with our next thing?
Uh-huh.
We haven't, like, it's so funny. Like, yesterday after we ran to the courthouse and saw the verdict, and then we were like, holy crap. And we recorded, and we had just recorded an episode before that, and then the verdict came out, so we put something on update on the front of our podcast, and we basically just gave each other a hug. We're like, this is weird. Like, he's like my podcast husband. Are we breaking up? I don't know. Not really. I don't know.
You know what? That is actually the best next episode. My podcast husband, are we breaking up?
Yeah.
And we'll all be like, what's happening next?
We don't know. We don't know. So hopefully we're not.
I would take a good month off. I would take a month off, and I would regroup and be like, okay, we're going to change the name a little bit. What are we going to do? We're going to get ready. Anyway.
I want to kind of stick with that impact of influence, but we have to get the case. I don't know. We just have to figure it out. But we also, it's this weird balance of trying to figure out, like, okay, well, guess what? We're 13 on Apple. We've got people listening to us. Are they only listening to us because it's the Murdaugh stuff? Or maybe some people actually like us. We're not sure. But, just wanting to, right. So, some are both.
There are a lot of podcasts out there about the Murdaughs. There are a lot of Facebook pages. There are a lot of podcasts that are not where yours are.
Right. I mean, I think there's a little bit of both. Some people who like us, some people who don't. We probably need to figure out our business model better. We just have some work to do. And again, it's weird. And I hope that we are able to do it again, and that people will listen to our next one. And maybe it'll be a little bit successful. We will never hope for this again.
Well, I think that the Hanya thing could be even more successful, and I think it would do a it would fill a great need in the world of justice.
I would love
so.
to. I will hook up with you on that. I'm committed to that
Yeah.
because I mean, you told me about that. It's egregious. I have a young daughter, and I really feel like that's a story that should be told.
Well, and my husband, so I told the subscribers this earlier, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Sally, my husband did. And it ended up, we had to drop it because but it felt good to file it. It made Sally happy to go down there to the courthouse and make sure and file this lawsuit, because you cannot sue law enforcement unless they do something intentionally wrong. So all their mistakes, the DNA, the Amber Alert, those weren't intentional, was the argument. And that's how the law works. But, you know, when I pulled him into it, that's pretty early in my blog, we have this daughter. And I said to him, we live downtown. And I said, what if Blair was outside at the car waiting for her ride to school? And Judge Bean, who is my across the street neighbor, just like her neighbor in the trailer park, looked out of the window, saw Blair being grabbed, thrown in the car. Thomas and Russell hear her screaming or watching from the couch. And we call the police, and the police don't believe us. Would they have believed us? Yes. Would they have believed Judge Bean? Yes. Would it have taken 3 hours for an Amber Alert? F no. You know, that was the part to me that was like, we are no different. We're no different. It's still a 13-year-old little girl with braces on.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And every 13-year-old, I mean, it just really me.
That's active influence theme, because I mean, just talking about if you're somebody who has the means, or you know people, or you're a certain race or something, you can call people and you can probably make it happen. But not, and we're hearing this, not everybody has that same ability, and that's horrible.
I just had arm hair chills when you said that. I think you're exactly right. And I think it makes people uncomfortable, particularly white people, maybe like us, uncomfortable to talk about that, because I'll get comments like, that's not true. Well, I don't think it's intentional. I think it's belonging to a child with disabilities. Him being left out is not intentional. He's just overlooked. And I think that's what happens. I don't think it's intentional. I think it's this domino effect of Elizabeth Smart is all over social media, and then she's on the cover of People magazine. I don't think the media said, oh, we like her better than we like Kanya. I don't think that happened. No. But, you know, anyway.
Let's do it. All right. Well, I've got to get back on the road. I haven't seen my family in a week.
Okay,
on the road. All right. Have safe travels for you.
Okay.
Bye.
Carry on. Thank you, Peyton. Love you. Bye.